Hello, Alderwood Church family. It's good to be with you this day. It has been over 17 weeks since we've been able to meet together as a church family, and I'm so excited to know that in just a few weeks we'll be able to meet together. But before we do, I just wanted to invite two good friends of mine. They're also elders of your church, our church, Dr. Brian Schull and Dr. Mike Rohrenbach. Not only are they elders, but they're medical doctors. And the objective of this time right now is to help you know what's been going into the planning of opening up our church services so that you can feel confident knowing that we've really given a lot of thought in light of the COVID disease so we can make it safe for us to re-enter and worship together. So I'll start with Dr. Mike. Mike, let's go back to the very beginning. Tell a little bit what was behind the reason why we closed down church in the first place back in March.
Okay. We have our masks on today, and that's because the governor told us that the regulations are that we should be masked and socially distanced while inside. So we're starting this interview with our masks on. We are 6 feet apart, and we are going to take our masks off so we can appropriately talk with you, and we will be able to communicate better. So the conversations that were going on when we decided to close the church in early March were these. As we all know, there was a new virus that came out of China, and it came out in early December. And it was known in early December by the medical workers, but it was not reported until later in December. In fact, it was kept a big secret within China, and they actually closed down their travel in China, but they did not close international travel. So what happened then was that this new virus, which is called COVID-19, spread to all parts of the world, and it actually came here to America and landed here in Everett as one of the first cases that we took care of in our community. And so our clinic was starting to address this issue in mid-January. We saw this case come. And as you know, we shut travel off to China in late January. And then we eventually shut travel off to Europe then shortly after that. So in our clinic, we started to see this thing coming our way, and we as a clinic started to make some changes in February so that we actually had clean sites and dirty sites to take care of the COVID patients. And we actually shut our clinics down to most of our regular patients. And so the conversation started to come at the church level that, hey, we have this thing coming, it looks real, this is a national pandemic. And so we actually had conversations in early March about shutting the church down. And so we decided, we got together as an elder board, and we decided to shut church down on the 8th of March. And then we initially thought it would be a 2 weeks because we thought there was going to be a 2-week period to slow down the virus. I think we all remember the 2 weeks to slow down the virus. And then it became very apparent as the numbers climbed and climbed across the country that it was going to be a longer shutdown period of time. And actually in that same period, we had 5 members of our church get the virus. And so that really helped solidify our decision as we put our heads together to shut down our church. And to the pastor's credits and our leadership's credit, we actually went very quickly to virtual church and were able to keep our worship services going. So I give much credit to our pastors and our leadership team for that. So.
And we shut down about a week or two before the governor actually shut down the churches. So we're grateful for that. Now, 4 months have passed. It's been a long time. And so now we're looking at reopening the church. So Brian, tell us about what are we basing our decision on and why what we're thinking about before we open up the church.
Yeah, since the beginning of the pandemic, Alderwood has been using 3 guidelines to kind of decide how making decisions. We've been looking at safety for our congregation, health for our congregation, and also following the guidelines of the Center for Disease Control, the Washington State Health Department and Governor Inslee's phases for reopening. Today we're excited to announce that recently Governor Inslee has made some significant changes in the requirements, the guidelines for churches to open up. And one of those changes is he significantly increased the number of people that can meet in a church at one time. And because of that, and because of the size of our church building, we are now going to be in the near future be able to open and meet again here in person. With these changes though, besides the great news, comes some big changes that we have to think about how we're going to be meeting together. And understanding that we're going to be doing church in a little different way. Everyone's going to have to want to feel safe when they come to this building. We want to, because we're going to be meeting in a larger gathering, and we want to make sure that the risk of infection while here is reduced as much as possible so that people will again feel safe coming here.
Thanks, Brian. So we want to not only make it safe, but there's a lot of things we've been thinking about in order to make it safe. So Mike, why don't you address some of the things that people need to know when they first come back to the church after being gone for so long? When they first come back into the building, what can they expect?
Well, first of all, we're going to want them to know that they're welcome, that we are excited to come back together, and we're really at a point where we feel safe in coming back together. We also want them to know that we are going to follow guidelines for the ultimate safety of our staff and our members here at the church. And we also want them to know that we're tentatively planning opening July 19th at this point, and that could change depending on if there's an upscale in this second phase as far as the number of cases, which it is tipping up a little bit, so we're watching that carefully. But we're tentatively planning opening July 19th. We will have kiosks with masks. We'll have thermometers so that we can take people's temperatures coming in, because we really want to make sure that we're protecting all of our members here at Alderwood. We will shorten our services a bit, and so that'll be hard for Brad, I'm sure, to adapt to that. But we get such excellent teaching here. I know the pastors will be able to really modify their sermons to that length of time. We're also going to have accommodations for families in the west parking lot so that families can worship together and have outside areas for kids to hang out in the west parking lot. And we want everyone to know that they will be expected when they're inside because of the CDC guidelines and the phase that we're in, that we'll expect people to be conscious about wearing a mask and also keeping socially distanced, so that when we have seating, we'll make sure that we're spacing things to make it easy to do the right thing for our people. So those are kind of some of the things that people will notice when they come back.
Yeah. We were planning on removing a lot of the rows in the church to give space between the rows, and then also we'll ask that there be a 3-seat rule between every family. We'll have 3 seats between every family that comes. Brian, why don't you tell a little bit about how we're also going to take strides to keep the church clean and disinfected, and talk a little bit about what we're going to do to keep the church clean for the safety of everyone.
Yeah, both for following the guidelines for the state that the Governor Inslee has put out, and just for our own medical recommendations. All surfaces that will be touched are going to be cleaned before services and after each and every service. We will be having 3 services like we normally do, but as Mike mentioned, they're going to be only 50 minutes in length to give us extra time. Once the service ends, we're going to very politely tell people you need to leave the building so that we'll have time to clean each of the high touching surfaces again. In addition to that, we're going to have our heating, air conditioning systems, ventilation going at high power to get a lot of ventilation through the system. They're going to be having our doors open so we get additional airflow through that. We'll be having hand sanitation stations as you come into the building so you can clean your hands that way. And our bathrooms, we recommend if you don't need to use them, go before you come. They'll be available to be used though, and they'll be cleaned up also.
Yeah. So we do want to, again, abide by all the regulations that the CDC and the health organizations encourage us to take for the safety of everyone. And one of the things we know that everyone's going to be excited to gather together again, and you want to talk. So between services, we're going to ask everyone to go outside. We'll have some covered areas. We'll have some designated areas we can go to have some conversations and get caught up with your friends and people that you care about. So we want you to know that certainly will be available to you. Let's talk about, Mike, some of the things that we're used to doing, but we may have to refrain from doing once we meet back together.
Yeah, I know that all of us are going to be excited to see our friends and our pastors. And so one of the things that we often do is we often shake hands and we often hug each other. And we often hang out and just visit in close quarters in the lobby. And so we're going to ask that you try and remind yourself to not do the handshaking and not do the hugging initially while we're still in the phase openings of the COVID infection. We also you're going to notice that we're going to have a lot of ventilation, as Brian said. We're going to keep the doors open so that there will be some ventilation coming through. And we will not have coffee stands, and we won't have the latte stand open either. And that's really to prevent people from close mingling for coffee and lattes. So those would be some of the main things that people will see.
And also, we'll have to take some precautions, like serving communion. We won't be passing the plate as normal, but we'll give some prepackaged communion elements for you, as well as the offering plate won't go by, but we'll have an offering box at the back. So that'll be some of the things that'll be different, too, when we gather together to worship. Brian, why don't you address kid ministries and nursery and things like that, how that'll be kind of phased in?
Yes, unfortunately, right away, we won't be having kids ministry and nursery and childcare at the beginning. We're going to be trying to follow the school system closely and the state guidelines as far as when kids will be allowed to be in close quarters together inside a building. But on the other hand, we got some great, exciting plans. We want kids to come with your family. So we're going to be you're going to be sitting in the church as a family unit. So you're together with the people that you usually hang out with at home. But we also have a new thing where we're going to have an outdoor service. And this outdoor service is specifically designed for families. So parents and their kids will be outside if they want, a little more freedom to be out. And also will be for those that just feel uncomfortable being inside the building. They're together. And the outdoor service is going to be out in our west lot parking lot over here. It's going to be set up with a big stage, and there's going to be a live singing band that's going to be leading that. And then part of the children's time, we'll have a video from our children's ministry giving their lesson for the day. And then after that, we'll be hearing in the future from our children's and youth ministries departments what else they'll be doing after that. But that's what I was going to start.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to get back together as a church. It's just going to be some unusual, very different routines that we're going to have to establish for a period of time. Mike, why don't you also just talk about that some people, might actually need to stay home. Talk about who should abide by that.
Yeah, if you look at the attitudes of people on this whole crisis of, wanting to come to church, and then those who are reticent to come to church, you can think of it as a bell curve, where you have some on the front side who say, well, why weren't we meeting all the way through this? By faith, we should be meeting all the way through. And then you have those on the back side who say, well, gee, I care for my mother at home, and I have risk factors myself. So you're going to have a spectrum of people who have different views and opinions on return to church. So I'm going to address the folks on this end who would have more concern with coming back to church. And so those of you who are 60 and over probably will be at risk for more complications related to COVID. So we think that you should really, at this time, do the church remotely. If you have immunodeficiencies, such as treatment for rheumatoid arthritis or other autoimmune disease or chemotherapy, those would be people that, in our opinions, should probably avoid the phase 2 coming to church. There are folks who have diabetes. There are folks who have heart disease, lung disease, even asthma, that have poor outcomes with COVID-19. Those are the folks that tend to get in more trouble with COVID. And so those folks we're recommending probably do service from home as well. And I know that will affect a lot of people, but we think that our church body has been hit fairly hard by COVID, and we really want to be on the side of protecting our family here. So we're recommending that folks that are high risk would participate in the church services from home.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mike and Brian, for both being here today. I just want to remind you that we will continue, even when we start gathering together, that we're going to continue having our online services for those who don't feel comfortable yet or shouldn't come back because of their health. But we also hope to continue that ongoing into the future. We just really have felt like God's given us this ability over this time to refine our skills and get better and better. Our team has done such a great job at providing a quality online worship experience. I know it's not the same as being in person, no doubt, but I have certainly appreciated the team that's worked really hard, many, many hours behind the scenes to create a quality product, both for the worship service for adults as well as in our student ministries and our children ministries as well. So I'm super, super grateful for all those who have done that. So let me just offer a word of prayer for our church at this time. Lord, I come before you, and I just thank you so much for your hand of blessing in Alderwood. Thank you for the generosity of the people who have continued to give. Thank you for the ministries of the Compassion Center that are growing. Now we've reached over 44 families a week now with groceries and help. We thank you for that significant ministry, how it's growing. Thank you for how the student ministries workers and children's workers are reaching out to kids and children and really making contact. And we're reaching out to adults who are closed in their homes and need help with groceries. And Lord, I just pray Alderwood would continue to grow in their love for one another and the love for this community. We ask you to give us wisdom to know and take all the proper steps as we've outlined here to keep it safe for us to regather. And we just look forward to that day. Bring healing for those who are sick. Bring comfort to those who are grieving. Give peace to those who are anxious. Provide for those who have lost income. And Lord, continue to use us to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And I pray you give us boldness that we speak up clearly for you about the gospel of Jesus Christ and how that Jesus alone saves. And so, Lord, we just pray that all the ministries of our church would be pleasing to you. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you, Alderwood family. Look forward to seeing you soon.